Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alladhi hadana li hadha wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Shafi'i dhunubina wa tabibi nufusina. Wa habibi qulubina Abil Qasimi Muhammad. وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The insistence on being truthful within the Quran and the narrations of the Prophet and the Imams. The Quran is insistent upon acknowledging the truth and accepting it to the extent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states within the Quran with regard to the ulama of Bani Israel that their failure to disclose the truth that they knew through their scriptures has incurred the wrath of Allah, and that man and jinn all together curse such people. Again then, the Quran says, be with the truthful ones. The hadith states that it is better for you to state the truth and to be cut into countless pieces than to adhere to a falsehood and a lie. Now the reason for this is that we are here on a journey in this world of ours. And this world is it's a curious place. It's a very arbitrary place, and it's a very fundamental place. It's arbitrary in the sense that it has no value in itself, and the hereafter is what is valuable. But it's very fundamental in the way that we make the hereafter through this world. So on the one hand, the mechanisms in this world, according to the Quran, according to the Hadith, are all set into place in a particular way, and things are bound to happen in that way, whether we like it or we don't. It's a very transient place. It will not last. So it's not worth, for the sake of this world, to forego the hereafter. However, it's a very, very fundamental place, because this world is the only opportunity in which we can make anything of ourselves that we take to the future. In other words, we are making our destiny in this world for the world to come. Now, this destiny that is being made for the world that is to come is through us. We are the makers of that destiny. People are disillusioned if they think that there is a place known as Jannah where we will go. No doubt there is a place, but it is not like Florida where we fly to and we go and enjoy ourselves. It is a place whose rewards are contingent upon us. The best way to explain this is that when we tell a student that there is a phenomenal place where you can get employment. So if the student at present were to go to that place would mean nothing to that student, because there is no capability within that child right now to understand where they are. So the student would have to study, gain those qualifications, the ability, and after that, when they go to such a place, they will feel the full reward of that place. Similarly, there is no use in telling a person deprived of the sense of hearing that there is a beautiful symphony at this orchestra which is taking place. They simply cannot appreciate it. Or showing a beautiful scenery to a person deprived of the sense of sight. So the hereafter is in the same way. Yes, there is a beautiful canvas, there is a beautiful painting on the canvas in the hereafter. There's a beautiful symphony. There is. There are pleasurable fruits that taste sweet. But if I were to go there as blind, deaf, and deprived of the sense of taste, then what would it mean to me anyway? So this world is a very fundamental place in that way, that we can gain the eligibility of receiving the blessings of the hereafter. How is that done? It is done by bringing about the fullness of ourselves. And one of the prerequisites in bringing about the fullness of ourselves is ourselves are there. And a person who adheres to a lie, that person fundamentally is not available. So truth is seen as the agency for a person to truly acknowledge themselves, to truly see the real person inside the mirror. And then that becomes a point for growth of that individual. And until and unless that is not assured, it is a very superficial, arbitrary, delusional existence of an individual on the face of this earth. So let us explain this again. The Quranic insistence upon upholding the truth, acknowledging the truth, adhering to the truth. The Hadith insistence upon being truthful even if we are cut into thousands of pieces, even if people were to stone us to death or spit on our face, points to this fundamental fact that with truth you are acknowledging yourself. Life after acknowledging truth does not become more difficult. Life is not going to change, especially not for the faithful. The faithful acknowledges that whatever has been destined by their God shall come to pass. That's what the faithful acknowledges. My acceptance by the world, my sustenance, duration of my life are all determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes? The hadith says, do not preoccupy yourselves with the pursuit of that which has already been destined for you, and forsake that which cannot be forsaken for the sake of pursuit of that which has been destined for you. That means is, do not forsake Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in pursuit of whatever you want, for that is already due to come to you in any case. So upholding the truth does not mean that life becomes more unbearable, more difficult. Life will be as it is supposed to be. Make no mistake of that. But acknowledging the truth, what it does is, it brings me and you to the light of the day, and we begin to breathe once again. The greatest sickness, the hadith states, is to uphold and to live a lie. Lies are those things that cover the truth. When we live a lie, it's a false person that is being presented not only to the world, but to themselves. Allah says, يُخَادِعُونَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهِ يَخْدَعُهُمْ. They seek to deceive Allah, but Allah deceives them instead and lets them carry on in their blind ways. Pretentious existence is the greatest defeat of an individual. Of course, it does not mean we lose sense of discretion. If a madman walked in here with a gun and asked for somebody, we would have to lie. But that is not the same thing, and you know that. What we are talking about here is the fundamental truth within the self. A faithful should be liberated enough within their own souls to not to care for the opinion of the other when it comes to the pleasure of their God, and when it comes for them to lead a genuine, authentic existence. If my God is pleased with me, then what difference does it make what anybody else thinks about me? Yes. If I have to please somebody for the sake of sustenance, then I would rather please the one who governs the whole of this endless universe rather than for a few pennies and pounds. Uphold the truth at every point. At the close of this part of the sermon, what I wish to say is that even when we look inside the mirror, we only ever see what we want to see. It takes a true soul with courage to go beyond the image casted within the mirror and work towards the core of the truth that lies within the heart. The hadith says, bravest amongst you are those who are truthful. Weakest amongst you who take aid of falsehood. It takes a real lion heart to acknowledge the truth as it is within their own self. As a practice, the Imams would always suggest to the followers that examine your own selves, see where you are at every point. If you make a little flaw, that's not the end of it. You can rectify it. But if you don't rectify it, it's like you yourself creating a web of deceit. You will be caught in there before you know it, and there will be no way of finding any salvation. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this beautiful parable. It's phenomenal in Surah Baqarah. And those people who kindle a fire to illuminate their surroundings, and as soon as that is done, Allah takes away their light and leaves them in utter darkness. At that point, whenever the lightning shines, it blinds their sight. But through fear, they have no choice but to walk in that. And whenever the thunder sounds, the clap of thunder comes, through fear, they plug their ears with their fingers, but still they are forced to walk in that situation and find their way around. He's talking about a psychological state that is inherent within an individual who is not coming to the light of truth. This is the desperate inner state of a person who departs from that fundamental known as acknowledgement of the truth. Acknowledging the truth does truly humble us. It does not understand a superior from a subordinate. A superior would humble themselves in front of a subordinate when the truth is presented. A parent from a child. A Muslim from a non-Muslim. In fact, it cultivates the true spirit of godliness within the faithful. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Following on from the first part of our sermon, the problem with the present-day Muslim community and our religion is actually our inability to accept criticisms and our inability to be self-critical. By and large, when we find problems with the Muslims, we want to deflect them or give a variety of explanations. If the Muslim community were truly in submission to God, then their first point of devotion would be God and not a religion in the name of God. Their authority would be Allah as Allah, not Allah in the name of a religion. What difference does it make to me if somebody says Islam is wrong here? If I was endowed with God and submitted to God, I'll open my chest and say Islam is wrong here. I have nothing to do with Islam that is wrong. It's nothing to do with the Prophet of Islam. Why am I so adamant in defending the defenseless? Is it my religion? Surely Hussein ibn Ali said, if Islam is inflicted by the likes of Bani Umayyah and Yazid, فَعَلَى هَذَا الْإِسْلَامُ وَالسَّلَامُ, then on this Islam I bid my farewell. He did not hesitate in saying that this Islam is wrong altogether. Our inability as Muslims to accept criticism and to be self-critical shows that we've moved away from the whole meaning of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is submission to the truth. When the Mahdi comes, salamullah alayhi, one of the biggest problems people are going to have is that he'll bring in a religion that people will not recognize in the name of Islam. He will not hesitate in being critical about that Islam. One of the biggest problems the Jews had was Isa went and he said, look, I'm making halal what you made haram. I'm revising your ways. These are nothing to do with submission to Allah. It's nothing to do with Islam. Isa was calling himself a Muslim, yes? Hawariyun were known as Muslims. The greatest tribulation upon faith communities is their adherence to something that doesn't make sense within its own self. I was just questioning a dear young brother. I said, if I were to wear a leather belt right now and lead you in prayers, and that leather belt is not from an animal that has been slaughtered, what would you say about the prayer? He said it would all be invalid. I said, really? The whole prayer is invalid because a person wears a belt? From this law to the whole social outlook, show me one thing that can really verify itself in the Islam that we practice. Show me one thing that truly makes sense in itself. Does it? It is our inability to be self-critical. It is our inability to take criticism that has led us to this state. I often ask, when Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayhi laments in Nahjul Balagha, talking to his Sahaba, and he says, where are the likes of the Sahaba of Muhammad Rasulullah among you? But in fact, his Sahaba were not bad. But he lamented, obviously, because of the grief that they were causing him. Then what happened? Why was Ali salamullah alayhi lamenting so much? Surely, when somebody comes to the truth, it breathes the life of God inside their souls. It gives them a new lease of life. Their faces are radiant with faith. Their worries are thrown upon the shoulders of God. People who are sincere, truthful in the simplicity of faith. There are no complications in their heads. They are living, breathing, walking, talking the real truth and receiving the pleasure of it as a community. Why do we not observe that within our communities? Why is it that in order to prove our point, We have to disprove the point of the other. Is that any way of proving our own point? In order for me to verify Islam, I have to disprove Christianity. In order for me to verify Shia Islam, I have to disprove Sunni Islam. But surely the truth ought to stand on its own 2 feet. Surely it does not need to disprove the other. The present day Islam, and I will say this across the board, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, whichever one you take, these are in essence the construct of feeble minds who have not understood the essence of the truth of God. If they were truthful, they would be far more confident than what they are right now. They would not be causing such divisions within the world. There would be like the religion the prophets have brought, that open their arms. The Prophet of Islam goes to Medina and says, I believe in whatever has been revealed unto me and whatever has been revealed unto you. Our truth and your truth is one truth. Who after him has uttered these words? Who? But that is the real truth. Present-day formalistic religions have drifted from the truth to an extent that they are not producing godly souls in people who otherwise are more than godly. It is here that we, as Muslims, really do need to have open eyes, be critical about our faith, and revert to that principle of truth which is there within all of us. All of us. This might be edited later on, what I'm going to say now, but think about what I'm saying, yes? Maybe it's probably one thing, people don't mind me talking against religion, but when you talk about an example of fiqh, that's the time when people want to ban you. You know the khums taxation that we give? Imagine that that's the only taxation within the Muslim world. You don't need to imagine that. At present, we give 50% to Sayyid and 50% to non-Sayyid, don't we? In the 200 million Shias that are there in the world, yes? 20 million might be Sayyid, and 180 million might be non-Sayyid. You're telling me it makes sense that you give 50% to 20 million and 50% to 180 million. And in that 180 million that you give 50% to, you're supposed to build schools, roads, orphanages, hospitals. Does that make sense to anybody? Has anybody even thought of it? And even if we thought, we say, banish the thought. We are going against the 12th Imam. Do you think the Prophet or 12th Imam could come with something so illogical? This is just not even scratching the tip of the iceberg in the sort of problems, inconsistencies that we have in our faith that has become a faith that guarantees salvation and paradise. Can we recite Surah Fatiha for all of our marhumin al-Fatiha? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah.